and 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, 7, 8, and again. Hello, my name is Sandy Maya. I'm a dance teacher, and this podcast is for me to share my after-class thoughts with you. Enjoy! Hello and welcome back to another episode of my thoughts after class. My name is Sandy Maya, and today I would like to talk about to critique or not to critique. And I think first of all we need to understand what criticism means, because everyone has a different definition for it, in my opinion. Now, there are some people who associate criticism with something negative, and then there's me, myself, who thinks of criticism, constructive criticism, as an opportunity to grow, to improve, it's really like an opportunity. Now, you need to understand first of all what criticism is, and whether it is coming from a person who has the knowledge and wisdom and maybe experience to give that criticism as well. So telling somebody they're doing something wrong or that you don't like what they do is an opinion. That is really just an opinion if you say, I don't like what you do, but you don't specify why you don't like it, and you don't, even if you did, if you don't like it, that doesn't mean that it is not right, or, or it makes it wrong. And there are many ways to do certain things, and there are many people who think there's one right way, and then there are other people who say, no, my way is the right way. And it all depends on perspective, it all depends on preference. And I often see people do something differently than I would do it, but that doesn't make it wrong. That also doesn't mean that I would go there and say I don't like it, it's just different. But then again, there may be things that I don't like. But again, that's fine. I don't have to go and criticize people for doing something that I don't like if it doesn't really affect me. I just let them get on with it. But if somebody asks me for my opinion, I will give my opinion. But let's get back to criticism, and especially as a dance teacher in class. So I found, especially with beginners, if students come to my class first before they even encountered any other teachers with regards to the style that I'm teaching them, I find it easier to steer them in the right direction, and it is easier for me to highlight all the things that often develop bad habits, so I can already work toward the goal of preventing those bad habits as I introduce them to a certain style. But then you have those students who are coming as well, who have already had experience in that field with different teachers. Oftentimes students come to class and they used to go just for fun. I mean, my classes are fun too, but if I'm teaching someone, I want them to learn it properly. I also want them to stay safe in their dancing, which means that I have to constantly correct them so that they can dance for longer, basically, because if you stay healthy and fit, then you can continue doing what you love. But if you are making mistakes with regards to your posture, with regards to certain moves, then you may actually harm your body if you're not being corrected. And so I find that sometimes with people who come from other classes that are taught by teachers who maybe don't correct their students. And every teacher has their own way, and that's absolutely fine. But it is a lot harder for me to correct somebody's posture and the way that they do the moves when they've been doing it for a long time without ever having been corrected. So criticism, in my opinion, is very, very important, but it's also about how you deliver the criticism. I don't go to my students and go, hey, you're doing this wrong, just I showed you how, so just do it. I'm not doing that at all. I remind my students to point their toes. I remind them to be aware of their posture. I remind them to breathe. I remind them when I see something that is in my class not the correct way of doing something. I remind them of how it should be done and what to watch out for. I also often say to my students when I see them do something differently, not necessarily wrong, but just differently, I do tell them what you're doing is really nice and it is not wrong, but since you are going to work together as a group and you may be performing in a group in this particular dance or choreography, we are doing it this way. So it's criticism, but it is telling them at the same time that what they're doing is fine if they're doing a solo or if they're dancing with a different group, but in that particular piece I would like for them to change it because otherwise it will just fall out of place, and they usually take it in really nicely. I also often in class try not to put my attention onto one particular student when it comes to something they did wrong. I try to put out the message in an more open way that anyone in class could be meant. So I'll just remind everyone, remember to do this, to do that. Sometimes students come after class and they just ask me, and I actually have a value add-on that students can subscribe to as well, where I give them digital feedback after class as well if they like to get that kind of feedback to grow as a dancer. And I know that some students are taking feedback or criticism easier in than others, so I'm very careful. I'm always trying to see how it makes them feel, because it's never personal. It's just really because I want for them to be the best version of themselves. I know it's a cliche, people say that, but I actually really like that saying, because that's really all you can be. You can only be the best version of you. There shouldn't be any comparison because we're all very different. And so the criticism that I give, I never just say, this is not the right way, or you should be doing it this way. I always try to explain and to demonstrate what should be done, and I always try my best to show the difference and as to why it is important. Because especially in belly dance, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in other dance, but a lot of the moves look very similar. And when you watch someone on stage, you cannot be certain what kind of move they just did. But when you have 10 people on stage and they're all doing the same move, apart from one person who's doing another move that is similar but not the same, and it will be evident. If you're just having one person, you can do whatever you like. But if you are in a group and one person is doing a slightly different thing than everyone else, then it will show. And the other thing is that sometimes the different moves turn into one. So it's very important for me to point out that they may think that they're doing a different move, but it all looks the same. And so I need them to understand what the difference between those moves are, so that they can work on it and they can understand why it is important to have that difference. I often take a student who knows a move very well, and then I ask them to do that move, and then I stand next to them for everyone else to see, and I ask that person to continue doing the move, and then I will do the other move which looks similar, but it's not the same. And then when they see those two comparisons, then they can see the difference, and they can go, oh, I see what you mean. And so that's really quite helpful. The other things are just small things, as in, keeping the chin up, not looking on the floor, the arms, the smile, unless it's a very serious piece. It's just really small things like that. It's staying in line, knowing where you need to be, keep your position so that you're not all over the place and some people fall off stage. And it's just small things like this, because I know that all the dancers are concentrating and trying to get it right, and I can also see when they take in the feedback that I give them, because even though while I give them the feedback, they may get something else wrong, but because I know they normally get it right, I know that their brain is working and they're trying to digest the information that I've just given them. And then because they're busy with that piece and they know it's coming up soon, they may mess up something else that they normally do really well. It's just because the focus is gone. And that's totally fine, and that's all part of the progress. And it's really important for me to always remind my students, especially when I give them criticism, to remind them to look back to when they started and where they were then and where they are now. And also with all the feedback that I have given them throughout this time, how they were able to correct and improve their dancing. And it's just wonderful to see, because they see it when they look back at the videos. They go like, oh yeah, oh I see now what you mean. And it's like, okay, that's what I need to work on. So it's a little bit of feedback. Visual feedback is very important, rather than just telling them. And even if you ask them to look in the mirror, sometimes it's not that obvious to them when they're just looking at it and they're trying to work it out and figure it out. But looking at a video of the performance, they can see the whole picture of what the group looks like when they're dancing together, or if it's a solo, of course, as well. And everyone improves. I mean, I give myself criticism a lot, you know. I mean, like, I also know when I started, and I know I've come a long way, and yes, I'm teaching, but even as a teacher, I'm not perfect. And it's funny because I find with all the feedback that I give to my students, I kind of have a little checklist within me, and I'm like, am I doing this right? And maybe I should pay more attention to that. And when I look at videos or anything, I'm always like, yeah, you have to work on that. That needs to be more defined. And but I don't take it in a negative way. I get excited about being able to improve something and to have a better performance the next time. And I'm just hoping that my students are taking it the same way, because it's absolutely delightful to watch a video from like 3 years ago and you just see, oh gosh, yeah, no, clearly I either lacked experience or I didn't rehearse a piece enough for it to be stage ready, or I wasn't with the group, just small things like that. And you can also see with students, the more feedback you give them, the more prepared they are when they're going on stage, especially if something goes wrong. Let's just say they're dancing with props and they're dancing with a veil and they kind of get stuck, and they just get on with it. They deal with it, because we do that in class as well. Whatever happens, you know, you get like a little bit of a workaround. Okay, if that happens, then you do this. If this happens, you do that. And that will prepare them of what to do, so they're not going like, oh no, now all is lost, what am I going to do now? They just get on with it. And that's something that's being created because of experience and because of criticism. And I think a healthy class, I think as a teacher, you know you have a healthy class if you are able to give criticism to your students and they keep on coming back for more. Obviously you have to be, as I said earlier, you have to be kind of careful how you deliver the feedback. You don't want to embarrass anyone in class. And again, there's some students that take it easier than others. Some students, they are asking for it. They even ask to be singled out. So if you then say like, you know, the name and go like, remember, you don't want to be doing this, in a playful way, but you can't do that with everyone. That only works with certain individuals whose trust you have and who are fine with that way of dealing. There may be others who react very taken aback because they may have had bad experience with criticism in the past in other fields. And the last thing I want is for somebody not to come back to class because I try to correct them just to help them become a better dancer. So I think that's these are my thoughts on criticism. Personally, I like criticism, and I'm gladly to take criticism from anyone. But if somebody just tells me I don't like what you do because, I just don't like it, then that's fine, that's your opinion. But otherwise, I'm always interested in how I can improve, what could be done better. Always take that in. Whether I will implement it or not is a different matter, but I will definitely take it to heart, will think about it, and then decide whether I need adjusting or not with regards to anything that I do. Okay, well, thanks again for listening, and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.